Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. Before we kick off this week's episode, just a quick ask. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to make sure that you never miss an episode, never miss out on any of the strategies and tactics that we're sharing to help you continue charting your own path to freedom. And if you'd like to go deeper with any of this, we've launched a free Facebook group, which you can join at pathtofreedom.com/group. And we've linked that in the show notes to make it easy for you to find. All right. Thank you again for being here. Let's drop in to the episode. Hey, what's up, everyone? And welcome to the Path to Freedom podcast. Today, I'm joined by Matthew Miller and Cody Patrick, and together they're the founders of Sweat 440. Matthew, Cody, welcome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I got introduced to you guys a few weeks ago. You just launched your brand with Franchisee, the consulting group that I'm a part of. And if I'm being totally honest, I've log in and I see it's a fitness franchise, and I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit. I'm like, oh, great, more fitness, because there's quite a bit of that in the franchise space. I'm halfway kidding, but pretty quickly I started to see where you guys have some real differentiators in your model compared to the vast majority of the other membership-based fitness concepts that are out there. Differentiators from the franchisees' perspective, but also some pretty big differentiators from a membership or a customer base. So excited to dig into a little bit more of that today. But maybe to kick us off, if you guys want to tag team it, or one of you just kind of give a quick overview of what Sweat 440 is, and how you guys do fitness for your members.
Sure. Cody, you want me to take that?
Go for it, bud.
All right, cool. So Sweat 440 is a boutique fitness concept. We started in Miami Beach in 2018, and have since expanded through franchising and a couple corporate studios as well. So what we offer is group fitness classes that offer a combination of HIIT interval and strength training. They're 40-minute classes, but the unique differentiating factor that we offer is a new class starting every 10 minutes. So it's a rolling start time, flexible fitness model that allows for a much higher convenience for your members, and a much more efficient model for you as a franchise owner as well.
Yeah, that new class starting every 10 minutes is probably a bigger differentiator than it may initially sound to some people. But anyone listening that has, had a membership to another type of boutique fitness concept has probably run into scheduling issues where, they're looking to schedule something for this week, and all the time slots that would work for them are already booked up, or, something comes up and they have to cancel last minute. And a lot of times you end up losing, if you're getting 2 sessions a week as the package that you're paying for, you end up losing a session if something comes up last minute and you have to reschedule. So, there's a lot more flexibility that comes with that kind of rolling new class starting every 10 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's why we designed the model the way we did. Life happens, regardless of what your story is. There's always something that could get in the way of achieving your fitness goals or making fitness a priority in the first place. And that's what we were trying to eliminate, was that barrier to entry, that common excuse that I just don't have time, I don't have space in my schedule to do this thing.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been kind of a workout at home guy, but it's largely been because it's tough to schedule. We've got like 3 young kids, so I don't have the luxury a lot of times of like planning my weeks out in advance. Mm-hmm. So I can see where this makes it a lot easier for people that are juggling busy schedules, and their weeks are not always exactly the same in terms of their schedule. My wife was a member at one of the Pilates franchises for a couple years, but then as we started having kids, it got harder and harder for her to find classes that worked with her schedule. And there's a limit to a lot of these fitness concepts out there in terms of how many people can be in a session, how many sessions they can run in a day. And I know that was something, as I was listening to you guys present to our group a couple weeks ago, like you kind of ran us through the numbers of like, how many people can actually come through and do a workout at Sweat 440 in a day. and it's significantly more than what you probably have with most of your other group class type fitness.
For sure. Cody, you want to run through that?
Yeah, so that's the really cool thing. And I don't think Matt and I anticipated this when we actually started the business. We had the great idea of the flexible start time, but there was a lot of inherent efficiencies that also came along the business side of stuff. So to your point, Wes, is, if we're running 65, 70 classes a day because we're running them every 10 minutes, we're running groups of either 6 people or 9 people, depending upon the size of the studio, right? So if you do the math, we could put 500 people a day through one of our bigger studios. And if you look at a typical boutique studio, that's just a capacity that no one else could possibly fathom.
Not even close. Yeah.
And to take that a step further, what's really interesting is for most places, if they have a 6 a.m. class and it's only half full, they don't have any chance to make that up because it's just half full, right? So until the next class, it's just dead space. Whereas for us, if we have an empty class at 6 o'clock, our 6:10 might be full. 6:20 might be half full, or 6:30 might be full, right? And it just kind of, it kind of juggles. And from the consumer perspective, if you can't make the 6 a.m., you just don't go today. But in our, with our model, if you don't make the 6, you could make the 6 or the 6:10 or the 6:20. And so that leads to a higher throughput and also a higher usage for us overall. And then that also translates to the consumer, right? If you want to reach your goals, going to work out once or twice a week is probably not going to get you there. But going 3, 4, 5 days a week, that's where the real differences are made. So it's kind of a benefit on both sides. The more frequent you use it, then the better results you're going to get.
Yeah, that's a great point. The consistency is key, right? And if having more flexibility, having more capacity, if I'm planning to be there at 6 o'clock and I'm running late and I get there at 6:15, I can jump into the 6:20 class, right? Let's say the 6:20 class is full. Well, I've only got to wait 10 more minutes, to still be able. It's not like I've got to say, oh, well, this isn't going to happen today because I can't wait another hour for the next class to start. It's really a huge differentiator in my eyes, from both the consumer standpoint as well as, for your franchise owners. I think one of you started to touch on it, but tell us a little bit more, like, how did you guys come up with the concept? It sounds like you had, this was kind of top of mind for you as you're building the business out to make it more flexible from a scheduling standpoint. So, like, where did that idea come from? How did you guys, ultimately land on the model that you have today?
It was rather organic. Both Cody and I were personal trainers and business owners in the Miami Beach area. We were kind of competitors, but friendly competitors. I know a lot of my personal training clients around like the mid 2010, 15 era started like really gravitating towards the boutique fitness industry, and they were taking Pilates classes or Barry's classes or Orange Theory classes, and they were running into all the same problems that we've kind of like hashed through here. And so I just got curious, started asking questions. What do you like about group fitness? What don't you like about group fitness? What are your frustrations? And then just kind of came up with an idea, a concept, a business model that kind of addressed those inconveniences in a way that still captured all of the benefits of what group fitness would be. And I took a very rudimentary, rough idea to Cody, out of mutual respect that I have for him as a business person, as a friend. And he loved the idea, and he brought a ton of his own fresh ideas to it to make it what it is today. And super happy that we're where we're at.
This was 2018 that you opened the first location there in Miami Beach.
Yeah, 18 was the first location. I think we kind of started pontificating about the idea around 2017 or so.
Very cool. So talk to me a little bit about what's the actual workout entail, because there's a lot of different modalities within the fitness space. Pilates has come up, Orange Theory's come up. I mean, you've got everything from boxing to kickboxing to yoga. Like, what type of workout is someone going to get when they come through Sweat 440?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of ways to describe it. It's a combination of HIIT interval training with some strength training as well, like more functional strength training. But we incorporate a little bit of everything. There's agility training, there's speed training. We have the tanks, torque sleds, body weight stuff through our TRX. Just a ton of different modalities to keep the workout fresh and interesting, but still very structured so that the customer knows what they're getting every day. It's just a little different every day to keep it fresh.
Yeah, which I think is important. Like, if you're doing the same 2 or 3 workouts just over and over and over again, it gets old pretty quick.
Yeah,
I think most people want to be able to mix it up a little bit. So, and it sounds like it's pretty comprehensive. Like you said, you're getting some of the high intensity training.
Yep.
You're also doing the strength training, which I think is huge, right? Because I mean, I would imagine a lot of the people that come and start it at Sweat 440, their primary goal is to lose some weight.
Yep.
And like I started working with a personal trainer almost 2 years ago, and have lost some weight and gotten in a little bit better shape. And it was all through strength training. Other than trying to get 10,000 steps a day, like cardio wasn't even really part of that equation. That this trainer had me was all diet and strength training. So, I think that strength training component of it, to me, is a little bit of a differentiator too, because a lot of what you see out there is more cardio based in boutique fitness.
Yeah, for sure. And look, the winds of change move pretty fast in the fitness industry. There's influencers touting all kinds of different things all the time that tend to shift things around. We are more of a strength training based workout. And we have the flexibility within our system to be able to navigate and gravitate towards what needs to be done in order to be successful and sustainable.
Yeah, to me that's appealing. Where you guys aren't like so niche, right? Like you're just a yoga studio or just a boxing gym, because as new methodologies come out, as maybe even new types of equipment come out, you guys have the flexibility to incorporate that into it. Maybe walk us through, like, so what does a typical session look like for a member? We've talked about how the start times are every 10 minutes and the benefits of that, but what does a workout, how long does it last? I know you guys, they're kind of rotating through stations as I understand it. Like what does that look like? We'll get right back to the episode, but I wanted to quickly share a free resource with you. If you're curious about franchise ownership and want to learn more about how countless people, including myself, have leveraged franchising as a way to create more freedom for themselves and to take control of their livelihood, I've put together an ebook. It's called Franchise Wealth Creation, and it's the perfect starting point for anyone that's just curious to learn more about this whole franchise thing and how I've helped hundreds of other people navigate all the steps involved in understanding and researching franchising. So click the link in the show notes, fill out a short form. I'll send you the ebook. I think it's a great starting point if you're curious at all about learning more about franchising. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah. So what we did to kind of facilitate the starting every 10 minutes is we leveraged technology heavily to make this all work. So the amount of time of the workout is all based in our name. So it's a 4-station, 40-minute workout, and that's where you get the 440 from. So you're going to spend 10 minutes in each of the 4 stations. Each station is going to have 3 different exercises that you're going to do for 3 rounds. So it's 9 rounds per station, total of 36 rounds per workout. So you get a lot of work done in those 40 minutes. So it's 36 minutes of work with 4 minutes of like rotational time between the stations. So you get a lot done. And a typical station is going to have a little bit of a balance of, Matt does all of our programming and stuff like that for us. And the great thing is it's very science-based and it's supported by technology. So the screens have what's called a virtual trainer on them. So you're going to have 3 exercises that are being displayed in each of the 3 corners. And then in the 4th corner is going to be the timer that tells you when to start, stop, and rotate.
Okay.
The other really cool thing about our technology is it integrates with our customer management system. And it actually displays your name on the screen and shows you exactly which exercise you're meant to be doing at what time. And it will rotate. So literally, it could be autonomous if we really wanted it to be. But then the best part is our coaches, they're not worried about teaching a class like a typical class with a microphone where they're screaming at everyone and trying to demonstrate. They're actually able to give more of a one-on-one personal training type touch. And they can, A, keep you safe, B, keep you motivated, C, they can modify, they can, ramp it up or step it down for you based on your ability level. If you have an injury and you're not able to do something, they can give you an alternative exercise and stuff like that. And so that's where the technology and the human components kind of overlap. to give a better consumer experience so that it's a little bit of a balance between group fitness and personal training.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. So is there a physical, like an actual person trainer in there, or is it
Oh, yeah.
all handled through the virtual trainers on the screen?
No. We have coaches on the floors that are
Okay.
constantly roaming and stuff like that. So they'll be walking around. If it's your first class, then they're going to definitely give you extra attention, making sure that you understand, where to look, what screen, when to rotate. They give you those extra touches. The really cool thing is our existing members love it too. They love to help the new people that come in. So, if it was you, they'd be like, "Hey, Wes, your name's right there on the screen. Just stick with me. I'll be right next to you the whole day." It's really cool.
That's cool.
But then the coaches, of course, they're there. They are certified personal trainers or group fitness instructors as well. So they have the scientific experience that they need to be able to safely guide you through the workout and provide any of those modifications for you.
Yeah. So you guys brought up a good point when you presented to our group a couple of weeks ago that I didn't really connect right off the bat, but a lot of times what happens with some of these different boutique fitness concepts is like one trainer kind of becomes like the most popular trainer at a location, right? The most in-demand trainer. And so everyone's kind of scrambling to sign up for their class. And then the other trainers are not, maybe as in demand. And then, if you're the business owner in that scenario, like you run a pretty big risk if that trainer leaves to go to a competitor or maybe even to start up their own business or something. There's a pretty high likelihood that they take a lot of members with them, if they're really that dedicated to that specific trainer. So it sounds like this is not as big of a concern in your model, because while yes, you do have these trainers in each session because of the rolling start times, because of the way the workouts are structured, the members aren't is likely to develop that strong of a connection with a single trainer. Is that an accurate kind of assessment of how you guys described it?
That's a very accurate assessment. Yeah. So when you book a class at Sweat 440, you're not booking a class with Matt or Cody or Wes. You're booking a Sweat 440 class, and then whoever the instructor is, just the instructor that's there for the day. And we typically run pretty lean. Most of our studios run off of 1 or 2 or 3 staffing model. Usually
Okay.
2 is about kind of optimal. So yeah, there's never a chance for them to get for your members to get so aligned with a coach that they feel like they need to follow them to the next thing that they move on
Right.
to. That was a big point of emphasis when we were putting the system together.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And then what about community, right? Because one thing that can be attractive about a lot of these boutique fitness concepts, something like an Orange Theory with the set class times, is a lot of times you end up use the 6 a.m. class as an example. Same people every week or multiple times a week showing up to that 6 a.m. class. So there is a bit of a community that develops, and that can be pretty strong in some cases and keep people coming back. Do you see any of that with this, since it's a little bit different with the flexible start times?
Yeah, I mean, we still kind of have that, honestly.
Yeah.
Just because it's a flexible start time doesn't mean that you're not in the same room with all
Right.
4 people at a given time, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, our especially some of the time slots, like our early mornings, like 5:20 or right after work, 5:30, you'll see the same crew in those 6 or 9 person groups. But even if you don't, they're going to start at 5:40, and you'll see them in that group,
Right.
right?
You'll still cross paths with
Yeah,
them.
you still cross paths, and we do a lot of things through through our technology and through our people to build that community in a way that's also a lot different from what other studios would do. So we've made some adoptions and adaptations to be able to address that.
Can you share an example or two of what that looks like
Yeah,
in
sure.
terms of how you're using technology to create more of that community?
Yeah, sure. So the names on the screen is a big thing, right? So
Yeah.
it becomes a familiarity when you introduce a first timer, because that's always a hard thing, right? Is to get first timers to feel comfortable with OGs, because
Yeah.
OGs, they can kind of they formed this clique already, and to let someone else into that world is oftentimes difficult. But your name's on the screen. We introduced you before you start, so there's already that kind of camaraderie there, and just being able to have that interchange is really nice. Um, Also, our people tend to stay with us from a staffing perspective for a pretty good while, especially our managers. So it's kind of like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. You want to see the same faces when you walk in on a daily basis. And so our managers are kind of a different position. They work our studios 30 hours a week in studio, at least at minimal.
Okay.
So you're going to see that same person, that same face, whether it's the manager or the assistant manager on a pretty recurring basis. So you'll get familiar with them and you'll know who they are. And then through technology, we also partner with Perkville to offer a reward system. So we can start, getting referrals and utilizing that and rewarding people for their milestones and rewarding people for things that they've done to earn points and generate more interest and more buzz like that.
Yeah. So a little bit of gamification almost, right? Because like if you're anyone that's ever ridden a Peloton, right? It keeps track of, your stats, your previous performances. You've got kind of a dashboard showing you your output and all this stuff throughout the ride. And then at the end of it, and, you can see other people's names and if it's their, 200th ride or something like that. So it sounds like you guys are incorporating some of that into it as well.
Yeah, definitely. We just aligned with the Perkville reward system about 4 or 5 months ago, and it's been a really big hit so far.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
We also have the cool thing about the monitors as well is next to everyone's name, they can earn badges based on the number of classes that they've attended.
Nice.
Their name will change color. So if you join the 100 class club, you get a blue badge or the shield next to your name, and your name turns blue. And once you hit 250, it turns lime green, and then once you hit like 440, it turns another color. So it's really cool. So you can kind of earn a status and a badge with that. And then we also have a
blue check mark on social media, right?
Exactly. And then we also have a week streak flame next to your name, so you can see how many weeks in a row you've attended classes too. So that was something that was really funny to see how all the members they really got attached to that. They're like, oh man, I tried to book my vacation so to make sure that I got at least one day this week of class. I'm not kidding, and I've heard that.
I believe it.
10 or 15 people have said that exact same thing. Like I literally booked my vacation just so that I wouldn't lose my streak.
I believe it, man. That stuff, for whatever reason, and people much smarter than me could explain the psychology behind it, but it works. The gamification thing, for sure. So sounds like you guys have a lot of cool ways that you're incorporating that. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about this, from kind of a franchisee's perspective, right? So a couple of these things have come up already, but talk to me a little bit more about the size of the location. I know you mentioned that you have either 6 or 9 station or 6 or 9 members rotating through at a time, depending on the size of the location. So what are you looking at square footage wise, ideally for either a 6 or a 9?
Yeah,
our sweet spot's kind of right around 2,700 square feet. If you're like landing it right in the middle, 2,500 is kind of on the smaller side, 3,000 to 3,200 on the larger side. And then if you're on that larger side, then you can make a slightly larger workout floor, which would allow you to run groups of 9.
Okay.
That's probably only going to be necessary in your metropolitan areas. In general, we've found that the 6-person size studio is optimal because you get some, it's easier to manage, right? You don't need to have an extra staff member during busier times and stuff like that. And it creates a little bit of that busy restaurant feel, right? So it doesn't matter how good the food is at a restaurant. If it's empty, nobody wants to eat there. Same thing in a gym, right? You kind of need the closeness to create the energy. And so in general, and then also just rent, paying for, 20% more space is expensive. So it lends itself to be a little bit more profitable as well, to have that slightly smaller space.
Yeah. And so the layout, you've got obviously the area where the workout's actually happening. And then I assume you have some sort of a lobby or a waiting area, where people are waiting to rotate in every 10 minutes. And then what does the process look like to sign in? I assume they're doing it through an app or a kiosk when they walk in, but how do you get yourself into rotation?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways. We're partnering with Myriad Tech for our CMS, and so you can book through your app. You can also check in if you already have a booked class. at the studio level, either through a kiosk at the front desk or one of our staff members can check you in as well.
Cool. So then you touched on this earlier. You said 2 to 3 teams are kind of ideal. Is that meaning 2 to 3 trainers plus then you have a separate manager, or is that are you cross training a trainer to be a manager as well?
Yeah, all of our managers have to be certified coaches as well.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that they have to like come to us as a certified coach, but we need to get them certified before they can start working the floor. So depending on the studio and the utilization, and we have very detailed reports and records for all these things to help guide all of our franchisees and all of our studios on how to staff and how many people to staff at what times. So you certainly can run on a one-person studio, and typically that's going to be your salaried employee, right? Because that's probably what their best, those times need to be covered by somebody. And then usually if it's a two-person model, you'll have a manager and a coach there at the same time. And very rarely will we get to 3 people on staff at the same time. Again, that's for those larger groups of 9s where we've got 36 people in the room at a given time.
Right.
And so at that point, you want a manager and 2 coaches, or a manager, a coach, and a floater. Yeah.
And so really no need for like a front desk admin type person.
No, your manager almost works in that capacity,
Right.
on most days, because that's where kind of like, the sales transactions would tend to take place is after the workout is done, closer to the front desk area. So they're more in charge of that first timer orientation, like as far as like the during the class times, they're in charge of that first timer orientation, and then the sales process after that first timer comes through.
Yeah. So this is pretty lean, from an employee footprint standpoint, and, even the size of the location. I mean, comparatively speaking, it's on the smaller side, even at 3,000 square feet. I mean, it's smaller than a lot of the brick and mortar franchises that you're going to see out there by a good bit. So, that's important, obviously, because, you have less fixed overhead, the fewer full-time employees that you have, the smaller the location. How challenging is it? Because this is something I know always comes up as a concern, as people are evaluating different business opportunities, is the recruiting piece, right? And I'm a big believer that it's the hardest part of any business that you could start, is to find and keep good people. Sure. My wife and I joke all the time, because we own some franchises ourselves, and we're like, man, if it weren't for employees and customers, this business ownership thing would be pretty easy. Unfortunately, they're both very, very necessary in this whole equation. So, for those listening that may be like, yeah, but how am I going to find, good trainers that already know what they're doing? I think you just kind of alluded to the fact that maybe they don't already have to be a certified trainer when they come to you. So, like, what are some best practices when it comes to recruiting the right types of people? You mentioned that you tend to have pretty good tenure. So you guys have clearly figured some things out. What are some of the best practices that you're able to coach some of your newer franchisees in when it comes to recruiting and retaining good talent?
Yeah, it's a great point, because, like you said, staffing is always the toughest part of any people business, right? So you got to make sure you have the right people. And that's one of the things that, I think we continue to evolve our processes on. We do a pretty good training of it with our franchisees as they come through our Swift 440 base camp. One of the ways that we go about it is from the top down, is we use a recruiter, especially in circumstances where the franchisee might not know that much about fitness, right? Like, I can go out and hire a manager, because I've been doing this for 20 years.
Sure.
If you're new to the fitness game and this isn't like your first time around, then nothing wrong with using a recruiting service to help filter in those candidates. And so we have a couple of options that we can refer to for those recruiting options. That's really where we stick to. And then from the coach level, let me back up. The manager level is obviously the most important hire that you're going to make. So they're going to be in the studio. They're going to be selling the memberships. They're going to be providing the experience. So we want to make sure we get that right. And so we put a lot of attention on that. For our coach positions, those tend to be a little more entry level. We'll use sites like Indeed or ZipRecruiter or something like that to find coaches that are strong, that have a good personality, that have a good background with their certification and their education. And there are kind of different tiers of coaches that we might recruit. If you're looking for somebody that has that needs more hours from like a head coaching type position, that we want to make sure that that position is staffed a little bit more importantly. But if it's going to be more of like a part-time role, then those tend to kind of filter in and out. And
Yeah. Yeah. And so are you able to help someone get certified as a trainer if you feel like they're the right fit and they just don't have?
Well, I mentioned that more or less from the manager's position.
Okay, I got you.
We have a really strong manager that's really strong with sales and really strong with operations, but they don't have a group fitness certification. Then we would work to get them that from our corporate level, or we can recommend our franchisees different certifications to get for that.
I got you. Yeah, that makes sense. So you just touched on where I wanted to kind of go next, which is sales, right? Yeah. So what is the typical sales process look like? Or are you guys allowing a prospective member to come in and do a free session as kind of a trial? And then the goal is to try to, convert them into a member after that. What does that look like? Because I've seen a few different models, across some of these different fitness concepts when it comes to the actual sales process.
Sure. Cody, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can walk through that one. Yeah. So what's, the sales journey kind of begins as soon as you hear about the brand, right? So it's as soon as you see an ad on, Facebook or Google or whatever, then, it's going to lead you to the website. So hopefully the experience begins early on, with a really good seamless booking process, getting you in. And then in a perfect world, as soon as you arrive in the studio, you'll be met by our manager who, depending upon where you are in the sign-up process, assuming you've already booked your first class, they'll walk you through what to expect during the workout, show you the screens, explain how your name's going to be there. They're going to want to partner you up maybe next to an experienced member so that you have a really good partner to work out next to. They'll introduce you to the coach on the floor, making sure that that coach knows that you're a first timer. Also, we leverage technology. If it's your first class in the studio, your name shows up in gold with a star next to it. That way the coach on the floor knows to pay a little extra attention, make sure that you have a really good first time experience. When you finish in station 4, there's an actual sound that's like a ta-da sound that, again, draws attention back to the fact that the first timer has just completed their class. Then the coach will hand you off back to the manager at the front, where they can walk you through our membership options and package options that you're able to buy. If you're not quite ready yet, then we can always work you back in for a second free class. But we do the pretty traditional first class free offer that is common across a lot of boutique fitness. During different times of the year, we might run a free week and stuff like that. Just kind of depends on what time of the year it is and when you show up.
Yeah, makes sense. And then I assume you guys are running some sort of a pre-sales program, so as the franchisees working towards their grand opening, you're coming in and helping them market and ideally sign up some members before they actually launch. Is that a component of this?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we have a pre-opening minimum of 250 members to open your doors.
Okay.
That's a pretty important metric that we like to really make sure our franchisees are in alignment with. Because, we kind of use the analogy, like if you start out with less than that, you're kind of like starting off stuck in the mud, right? Because you need that energy and that momentum to really carry you forward. And also looking back to the empty restaurant kind of concept, if you open a gym and you don't have people in there creating that energy, it's really hard for the new people experiencing it for the first time to want to come back. And so it's going to make it harder to sell them a membership, right? So it's actually easier to sell a membership before you open than it is after you open in a slow studio. It's kind of a weird energy thing. So we focus heavily around that. We actually purchased a marketing company last year and brought them in-house. And so we have a really robust, marketing team supporting you through every aspect of that marketing journey and the pre-sales and getting you open. And those grassroots efforts and everything else that go along with that digital marketing effort all lines up really nicely to hopefully kick you off with that minimum 250 or above number.
Yeah, I like that you have a minimum. I don't see all fitness brands do that. They'll come in at a predetermined time before a grand opening date that's been put on the calendar, and the goal is to get as many members signed up as they can, but I don't always see that they have a minimum. So to me, that makes a lot of sense.
We
And
made the mistake a time or two where we allowed studios to open without hitting that minimum, and those were some of our growing pains and some of the times that we learned the lesson the hard way that we should stick to those policies because when you do it right, there's a huge benefit.
yeah. Tell me a little bit more about buying the marketing company, because that's something I like to hear, right? I mean, the kind of the norm in franchising is, have a third party marketing company and maybe someone at the franchisor that's a liaison between the franchisees and the marketing company. And I know it's always been a kind of a frustration in the franchises that we've owned, is a lot of these marketing companies out there just kind of a dime a dozen. So it's intriguing to hear that you guys bought a company and brought it in house. How did that play out?
We went through that whole thing where we tried multiple different ones, and every franchise owner kind of had someone they knew that they wanted to try, and it's very difficult for us to support that at the corporate level, right? We're trying to get content to these different marketing companies, teach them about the brand, help them learn the brand voice, use the right logos, the right font. The whole thing goes into it. It's just not really manageable at scale. And at the end of the day, we didn't really see that any one marketing company was outperforming the other significantly enough, right? They would ebb and flow, and at one point one would be doing well, and then they'd fall off, and another one would be doing well, and so we narrowed it down to two at one point, and then we became the largest customer for one of them. And there's a point in time where we're like, you know what? Listen, there's a lot of synergies by us actually owning this, because then we continue to build out a lot of back end reporting integrations. So we've now taken all the APIs and different stuff like that from our customer management software, and we've built out a complete member journey all the way from, did you click on this ad? Did you, and what was the ad spend, and what, at what point in the journey did you join? And we could literally map things out all the way through a customer's lifetime, which you just can't do that with a third party marketing service. And so, and then with that, like they've continued on to now they help manage our social media pages for all the individual studios. They manage our customer, outreach with our emails and SMS and all that different stuff. So that's a level of service, again, you're not going to get with a third party company. And so they're able to really just take the burden of the marketing off of the franchisee, because at the end of the day, you're here to run a gym, not learn how to become a marketer. And it's such a key component to operating the business.
Yeah. And I'll add that, most like third-party marketing companies, their job ends when the lead fills out the form. That's it, right?
Right.
They want to get the promotion, they want to run the ad, and they want to get them to fill out the form. They might even just want to get an impression. It depends on the company, right?
Yeah.
But with us having a vested interest in this marketing company and vice versa, they care about where that lead goes down the entire funnel. So their job doesn't end at lead fill out form. It goes all the way through lead shows up at studio, right?
Yeah.
Really more on our team.
Well, and then I imagine you can build out all types of follow-up processes for people that come in and do their free session, and maybe they're not ready to sign up right away.
For sure.
Referral programming, the opportunities are endless. And the fact that, you guys brought it in-house, you've got all these different levers that you can pull on now. You can also do a lot more experimenting, right? Because like that's hard to do, when you're working with a third party, and they're going to have their own ideas and their ways that they like to do things, and it's probably going to cost you a lot more to try to pilot some of these different things that you may want to try out.
Yeah.
So I mean, the fact that you guys were able to do that as early on, as you have in terms of the brand trajectory is pretty exciting, I would think.
Definitely.
To your point, mistakes are expensive. And, as we've learned, we've made a lot of them, but the best part is now is we can, A/B test things in a very controlled environment. So even when something doesn't work out, it doesn't become a mistake. It actually becomes a learning opportunity. Whereas in the past, we just kind of kept trying new things and not really getting any of the learnings from them. So they became a true mistake as opposed to a learning. And that's something I think that we've really been able to change now that we brought it all in-house.
Yeah. Very cool. So let's talk a little bit about like, and you may have said this at the top, but in case you didn't, where are you guys at right now in terms of number of franchise locations open and in development? And then I think you have multiple corporate owned studios as well. Is that correct?
Yep. We have two corporate owned studios,
Yeah.
South Beach and Brickell. Brickell's in Miami.
Yeah.
And we have 21 open franchises right now, and another, I think, 20 in development that have been sold, signed, sealed, and delivered. And we've got a couple other irons that are getting stoked right now too.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. So what, 40 some licenses essentially awarded at this point? How many franchisees is that across?
Yeah, I think Cody is the number 9, I believe. I think it's 9
8
franchises.
and 9, yeah, not very many.
Okay.
We're doing primarily multi-unit growth is our ideal focus.
Yeah, which makes a ton of sense to me. I mean, this is the perfect, kind of multi-unit, multi-location opportunity.
Yeah. And the great thing
What
is
do
a
you
lot of our franchisees that have bought previously are coming back to us to do more. So that's
which is always a good sign, right? It's one thing to sell multiples up front, but if they're coming back to buy more after they've opened their first location and are starting to see some results, that's a really good indication.
for sure.
So what type of franchise owner are you attracting thus far? I know it's pretty early, but out of these 8 or 9 franchisees, are they mostly people with a background in fitness or like a passion for fitness? Is it kind of all over the board? Is it corporate executives? Like what does your current franchisee mix kind of look like? If you've been considering business ownership, if you're already a business owner looking to expand and you're curious about franchising, I'd love to connect with you, answer any initial questions that you have, talk about a specific franchise, and detail the exact process that I use and have taken hundreds of people through to help them understand franchise ownership, find the right franchise for them, and conduct the necessary due diligence. Click the link in the show notes if you'd like to schedule a free, no obligation strategy call. I look forward to talking with you. And now back to the episode.
It is kind of a mix at the moment. It's been really interesting. We really have everyone that's kind of got a business experience in the past. What we have found is the ideal people sometimes maybe don't have a fitness specific background. And the reason it's not always good is because you come with a little bit of a, expectation to do things the way you've always done them. And you're going to want to try and bend our model to fit the mold that you were in before. Whereas someone that comes with just really good franchise operating experience and they've been a franchisee in the past, they like the idea of coming into a system and then adopting that system and just executing on it. And I think for us is, we just want people that understand business, right? You need to understand, like to your point, how to hire, how to manage people. That's a big component of the business. The fitness side of things is done for you, right? The programming is done, right? You don't ever need to program a workout a day in your life as a Sweat 440 owner. So, but you definitely need to have a passion for it. Right? So that's a huge part. We want someone that really wants to change lives. They want to be a big part of a community. I think that's where Matt and I were successful in the beginning, is we had community roots in Miami Beach, and between the two of us, we took that and we grew a very successful business. I think that's going to be a key component for our franchise owners, is to really have that, like, not only business sense, but also the sense of community and the sense of like being able to just manage a good team of people and then plug into our processes, which we've spent a lot of time, really ironing out over the last few years. Everything from the marketing all the way through to the community outreach and just the operating systems in general.
Yeah. So where are the, other than, obviously the initial hiring, managing the team, setting proper expectations, kind of, being the leader of that culture, where is the franchise owner's time best spent? I know you mentioned community outreach. I imagine that's a really good use of the franchise owner's time. But like, what would you say are the 2 or 3 most important things for the franchise owner to spend their time on? Because it doesn't sound like this is the type of model where the franchisee needs to be in studio every single day, or certainly not all day, every day. So how
Yeah.
should they be spending the time that they are spending
Yeah,
on the
but
business?
I think you hit the nail on the head. And look, if you are that type of person that this is your passion and you want to be in the studio, 30, 40 hours a week, selling fitness, living the dream, right? Then that's great. You can do that, and you'll certainly cut down on your overhead because you won't have to pay someone else to do it. But obviously, we're going to have franchisees that are wanting to not be in the studio all the time. That's totally
Yeah.
understandable, and you don't have to be. But yeah, I think having an acute attention to your P&Ls, your spreadsheets, your KPIs, and we provide a ton of reporting that's customized so that you don't have to spend hours a day pulling reports from different systems. We provide you with basically all the KPIs that you need in an email every morning to know where your studio's at, both
That's
weekly,
huge.
both daily, weekly, and monthly. So I think just having that, that train of thought to analyze your KPIs, set expectations, and hold your people accountable, and make sure those systems are in place and you know the skills are in place for your people to be able to do that. I think that's the most important thing that a franchisee can do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. The KPIs, I like that they get an email every morning. That's nice. I mean, even if there's I imagine there's a dashboard they can log into and pull all types of reports, but just having it automatically emailed to you every morning is a nice touch. But I coach people on this all the time, and I think a lot of people don't fully appreciate how beneficial it is to be a part of a good franchise system where, from day one as the owner, you fully understand what your KPIs actually are. You
Mhm.
have good systems in place to track them. And then on top of that, you have benchmarks, right? Where you can see how you're doing in your business compared to the rest of the franchisees in the system, in this case, the corporate studios that you guys operate, because then pretty darn clearly where you've got opportunity to get better. And
Yeah.
you also, assuming you share, some results across the system where there's visibility into that, who you can call and pick their brain, right? If you're, maybe conversion rate or retention rate is not as strong as some of the other franchisees in the system, give them a call, see what they're doing, figure out what you can learn from them, and then come back and apply it in your business. I think a lot of people overlook the value of that. If it's considering starting something on your own, you can figure that all out, but it takes some time versus it being pretty turnkey.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point.
What are the most important KPIs in this business for those listening?
Yeah, I mean, there's several. I think conversion rate and churn rate are the two that pop into my head automatically. I mean, other than gross revenue, obviously. But yeah, conversion rate and churn rate, and then your monthly recurring member count, and making sure
Yeah.
that that's trending in a positive direction.
How does a franchisee go about determining pricing? Is there some autonomy in that? I imagine you have different membership options that someone could choose. What does that look like?
Yeah, so we'll do a market analysis of where your location is going to be, and what we're seeing in competitors in the market, and we'll start on a tiered system, and we basically have three different tiers of pricing, one, two,
Okay.
and three. In your major metropolitan areas, you'll start a little bit higher on the scale with our founding member rates and work your way up. I think max rate in New York is like 229 per month, and then most of your like normal, not New York, not LA, not
Yeah.
San Francisco cities are going to be about 189 per month that'll top out at, and then more of like your secondary, tertiary cities might be like 149, 169.
All right. Very cool. Is there anything I haven't asked you guys that I should have asked you, or that
Gotcha.
you would want to make sure we touch on before we wrap this one up?
Oh man, Cody, you got anything?
Oh man, it's always a good question, and then it always puts me on the spot. I'm never ready for it. I know it's coming half the time. I'm never ready for it.
Oh,
Nothing I can think of.
support that you get from our teams when you sign on to be a franchisee. That would be good. You don't have to ask the question.
Yeah, talk. I mean, so I think you touched on a little bit of the pre-sales support. You touched on training. Real estate's a big one that always comes up, for people looking at these types of franchises. If they've never been through that process of finding a commercial location, negotiating the lease, managing the build out, how do you guys help franchisees navigate that whole piece of it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it actually starts before that, right? When you're in your franchise buying process.
Yeah.
So we'll get you in front of the right people to assist with any kind of funding needs that you might have. When you actually do become a franchisee and sign that franchisee agreement, you'll be paired with a national commercial real estate broker to help you find the locations in the best areas of your trade area. We also work with a project management company that we'll pair you with as well, so they can help you with your project management, your build out, and everything, as well as a nationally recognized architect, nationally licensed architect. That's the one, so that they can make sure that your build out is to brand standards.
Yeah, I think like when I'm talking to people, that tends to be one of the most overwhelming parts of this whole consideration is the real, and it's critical. Don't get me wrong. It's very much a critical part of it. Obviously, without the location, you can't ever get open for business. But,
Sure.
Most of the franchises that I work with that have a brick and mortar component do a really good job supporting their franchisees through that. And really the franchisee for the most part is just the final decision maker, right? Saying, yeah, I think we want to go with this location over this location. And it's the type of thing, there's always going to be curveballs, when you're dealing with real estate and negotiating and contractors. But for the most part, I don't see it being as, I think, complicated as a lot of people imagine that it's going to be when they're, first starting to consider it or research it.
Sure. And I mean, obviously you had the benefit of having done it before, right? But
Yeah.
if you haven't, I think Cody mentioned earlier, we don't want to give you an education on how to market Sweat 440. We want you to own, operate, and run a successful Sweat 440. Same thing with build outs. You don't need to have a 101 course on how to build a Sweat 440 and have a construction engineering degree to do this. We don't want you to have to do that. We want you to get to the good stuff and the fun stuff, which is running.
That's right. Yeah. That's huge that that you guys have all of that support built out. One other question came to mind, and I think I'm losing it. But what's a typical or what's the goal for timeline to open once someone's officially become a franchisee?
Yeah, typically the first one is, I think, 6 to 10 months is what we have in our process.
Okay.
Depending on how long it takes you to locate that real estate and negotiate that lease, because you can find the perfect spot and then the landlord can drag their feet, and that can take time. But
it to this day blows my mind how commercial landlords will sometimes take so long to respond.
amazing.
I mean, like I'm trying to sell a house right now. And like when I get an inquiry or someone wants to go look at it, like I'm not taking days or weeks to respond. Like I'm ready to sell this freaking house. But
That's
some of
smart.
these, some of these commercial real estate agents or landlords will just drag it out. Like you said, it's pretty mind blowing to me.
Yeah, for sure.
But well, look, maybe to wrap this up, and this may put you on the spot a little bit, but I always like to ask, like, if each of you have an idea that comes to mind, or just one of you, but like, what's one of your favorite franchisee stories? I know you guys are fairly early into all of this, but it could be a kind of inspiring story, a success story, something that's just funny. You don't have to give any specific names or anything, but anything come to mind in terms of just like a cool story that you could share, from one of your franchisees.
I'm sure we both do. Cody, you want to start?
I mean, I don't know if it's a specific story. I think it's more of the recent, I told you we had paused selling franchises for a couple of years to get out of the pandemic and doing all that. And we just really looked to start selling franchises again earlier this year. And immediately out of the gate, Matt said that our existing franchisees were lining up to double down. And I think that to me is inspiring for Matt and I to see that. Immediately we had one guy want to sign on for an additional 12 units. And we've got one of our other ones wanting to sign on for an additional 27 units. Like big, they want to go all in on it. It's not like small, like I want to do 1 or 2 more units. So to me, that's probably the coolest story
Yeah.
Just because that's where my focus is right now. But I don't know, Matt, there's probably a more fun, like just local level story that we could come up with. But
Yeah. I mean, for me, one of my coolest stories is I had an employee of mine at my first company, that was the personal training company, that started working with me while he was in college. And he graduated, stopped working for my company very gracefully, started his own personal training company. And we stayed friends and stayed in contact. And shortly after we had reopened after the pandemic or whatever, he contacted me and said, "Hey, I think I'd like to franchise a Sweat 440. I have a guy that would be my business partner, and we want to go down this path and talk about it." And right now, they're our largest multi-unit franchisee. So to be able to see
Really?
the maturation of that young man into
Yeah.
Sweat 440 franchisee and owner has been really cool.
That's super cool. Both of those. I mean, to your point, Cody, the fact that so many of your existing franchisees are coming back and wanting to buy more licenses. I mean, especially at some of those numbers, 12, 27 additional, like that's they got a lot of confidence that this business works and will continue to work if they're willing to make that type of commitment and investment in the brand for themselves. And then yeah, Matthew, that was a cool I love hearing those types of stories, right?
Me too.
And I'm sure you'll have plenty more examples like that as you guys continue to grow. So hey, really appreciate you guys coming on and talking to us about Sweat 440. Where should people go if they want to learn more about Sweat 440? If they want to see, if there's a location in their area so they can go and check it out. Any of that, where should we point people?
Yeah, sweat440.com. There's up on the top of the hero, you can check out where our locations are to pop into one near you. And there's also a franchising tab, so you can click on that, learn more about franchising, like specifically, and fill out a little form, and we'll get in touch with you.
Beautiful. We'll link all that in the show notes to make it easy for people to find. But Matthew, Cody, thank you guys so much. Thanks for everyone tuning in. This was Sweat 440 here on the Path to Freedom podcast.
So thanks, Wes.
yes.